Okay, well, good morning. I'd like to ask that everybody show yourselves, especially since we're a small group. That's one of the things that we prefer. Then we can have more of a conversation as we go too. Um, oh, I like that background though. Oh my goodness, that's beautiful. So this first bit is that actually yours? Your background? Oh, you're on mute, Priscilla.
My background?
No,
Oh,
Priscilla. Can't hear you.
Gracie, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yes.
Is that
This
your-
is my backyard.
Oh my goodness, it's beautiful. I gotta say.
I live in Coarse Gold, 3,300 feet.
Ah,
Thank you.
yes. Okay, so see, we're testing our communication too. Denise, feel free to join us. But as we begin getting to know you, we've got so much to cover today. But before we begin, we want to find out what grants mean to you. And the first question we've got is, how many of you have experience with a grant project? Antoinette, Gracie, that's what you prefer? Okay, Denise, Lauren.
Yeah,
have you-
Gracie worked.
Okay,
no,
great.
I never have.
Never have. Okay, good. I'm glad we've got people that have worked with grants and people who haven't. When somebody says grants, what's the first thing that comes to mind to you folks? Like, Lauren, grants.
Money,
Yeah.
a lot of paperwork.
Opportunity.
Opportunity, great.
A lot of writing and research.
Yeah,
Ding, ding. Exactly, yeah, right? So it's something you want to just jump into, and it's like the first thing on your mind. And it's like, yes, with all the things I've got going on with all my instruction, I want to work on a grant too, right? So what do you think the biggest challenge or hurdle in creating a successful grant project might be?
I think for me, I do have extensive background in grant writing when I worked at Fresno PD as well as a consultant. The struggle that I had was I did not know the processes in our district because I was accustomed to just going solo at it and then having the chief sign off and then we submitted it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, good, because we're going to go over some grant processes today. But I've met people in our district that also, they go for it and they do it in a solitary way. But our office is here to assist with that. So anybody else? Any other hurdles or challenges?
I think it's important to have, again, like Antoinette, she's used to, doing her own thing and she has a background in that. But my experience has been, that you have a good team, that you have the key people that, if you have someone that knows the statistics or where to get them, if you have somebody that's a good writer, I mean, because that's part of it. You may have great ideas, but it's like, okay, what are the, what do they want to see, in a condensed format that speaks to whatever it is that the grant wants. So yeah, you have to have people with strengths that work together to get a good grant out.
Gracie, you haven't worked on grants at all before?
I have. It's been
Okay, good. Because you're that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that experience. So originally we had planned to spend 20 minutes for the first portion of our workshop, but it ends up. Oh,
Sorry.
Sorry, Gracie, it looks like you slowed up. I'm going to put you on mute and we're going to move on, okay? The connection got bad, but we're going to come back to you. So originally we had planned to spend 20 minutes for the first portion of our workshop. That's what the advertisement was in the workshop description, but it ends up that we have a lot more to share. So we will be spending about 40 minutes discussing the new normal as we review the impact of COVID in the grants world, supports in grant development that our department provides, grant development capacity by campus leaders and their value of and comfort with our current processes, and new tools and resources developed by our department in response to the new normal. At this time, we will shift to the mini group, giving you the opportunity to tell us what you think about all of this, kind of see how you feel about grants at the end of the workshop. So let's get into the next portion of our workshop. As you know, the COVID pandemic has changed many things about the way we live and work, and many of these changes occurred faster than anyone could have predicted, kind of like a wrecking ball at light speed. And the same goes for the way we produce grant projects. We have moved from face-to-face interaction to more remote document production. This includes the regular use of tools for digital signatures, file sharing, and communication remotely with things like Zoom, right? But before we get into all these changes, we want to first cover just some basics about grants, just for those of you not so familiar with what a grant is, besides money, right? It's a lot of different kinds of money. So grants are the primary way for colleges and universities to pilot new projects and meet institutional gaps. If you're not already aware, there are many kinds of grants made available through the federal and state governments, as well as private foundations, nonprofit charities, and companies. These include direct grants, where the recipient receives the money directly from the funder, and pass-through grants awarded to maybe the state or, say, the chancellor's office, and then passed on to other campuses or organizations. There are many other flavors of grants, but categorical grants are the most common for us in education. And those would be like Title V and Student Support Services grants. And these are awarded based on the applicant's eligibility, like, oh, you're a Hispanic serving institution, and capacity to meet the grant's absolute and competitive preference priorities. Now, as you can imagine, this wide variety of grants plays in an incredibly important role in responding to critical needs and crisis events like what we've been going through that colleges sometimes face. So, for example, the impact of COVID on our colleges through the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund came with allocations of more than $18 million awarded to our district alone. That's student assistance, that's assistance for being minority serving institutions, students who have been on Pell Grants, all of that all together. We are now in the third iteration of this funding, but unfortunately, not all colleges in our district met the eligibility requirements to receive support. And you'll notice which one that is because you're a new campus. And this underscores how important it is to plan for grants in advance. So I'm really glad that you're all here, because the more you're prepared, the more you build Madera's grant development capacity, the stronger you're going to be in the future and to take advantage of crisis situations, because those are always going to be a period of high grant demand and opportunity. Luckily, as we come out of the pandemic, it looks like there are many new funding opportunities on their way. And this is another example of a transformative federal funding through the EDA, which received $3 billion in supplemental funding to assist communities nationwide to build back better. So you've been hearing that in the news. As problem solvers in our community, we can be a part of this kind of effort. And it might seem overwhelming. It's like $3 billion, how do we tap into that? You do that through grants. This is because community colleges will undoubtedly play a role in California's COVID recovery. For example, and I'm going to give a couple more examples. In February 2021, this year, the Little Hoover Commission recommended engaging the Strong Workforce Program in a grant to develop cross-sector training partnerships along with CBOs. That was in February. 3 months later, in June, the Chancellor's Office announced a $14.5 million regional collaboration and coordination grant of which 1.6 million is in play for the Central Valley Mother Lode region right now. So you can see that actually didn't take that much time, right? 3 months from recommendation to grant funding opportunity. So in translation, this means innovative CTE training programs are coming soon to the Central Valley. So whenever you see terms like additional state and federal support or continue investments, ensure funding, and expand learning opportunities like the ones you see here, and this is recommendations for improved distance learning, and also related to COVID, think of it as code for grants. When you see this language in the news or in policy recommendations, when you're in a meeting and you hear this kind of language, think grants and contact our office if you want to do something about it. Which brings us to the next portion of our workshop. We need to be ready as educators in a region impacted by high rates of unemployment and poverty, historically low rates of educational attainment, and repeated economic changes in the form of recessions, droughts, and pandemics. This is our new normal. To be prepared. And this is why we have a grants and external funding department. Our purpose is to help you to respond to the new normal, and we are doing that by developing new tools and resources, making ourselves available for workshops like this one, and meeting with campus leaders like you to better understand your needs and experiences. That's what we're hoping to get out of it on our end, at the focus group at the end. So let's start by taking a look at how grant projects are developed. Our department almost exclusively focuses on the first phase of a grant. This is known as the pre-award phase. It is where our department helps you to generate your project ideas, find funding opportunities or grants that fit those ideas and needs, and develop your budgets and project narratives. So before we go further, as we highlight our pre-award services, please consider which ones you have found or might find to be the most valuable to you. This will help to inform our discussion later in the workshop and in the focus group. So here's a list of the pre-award services that we offer. Okay, so we do help with researching and disseminating funding opportunities to campus leadership, assisting in project planning and design, which includes needs assessment, gap analysis, and team building, developing grant project milestones and timelines, sending out automatic reminders of project milestones, providing feedback on budgets and narratives, coordinating the internal routing and approval processes required by your college and district. We even submit your proposal on time and on your behalf, and develop training workshops and grant resources like this. So that's kind of an overview. So now that you've become a little bit familiar with what we do, if we're new to you, we have a poll for you. Okay, so here's the question. Which of the support processes that we listed so far do you think are the most valuable? And this poll is going to be conducted using the Zoom chat. Well, actually, there's, how many people are there? Not too many.
Our poll feature didn't work for this
Yeah.
session, so we will just use our regular way of talking. So you can raise your hand perhaps and tell us.
Yeah, actually,
yeah,
we can just do, instead of, I was going to use the chat, but there's not that many of us. So maybe take a look at this list, right? A, B, C, D, E. I'll give you a moment. And then if somebody wants to start, you can tell us which one you think is the most valuable. And a little bit maybe why.
I think for me, A is the one that I would need the most help with, just because that requires a lot of time and researching the funding that is currently available and when their timelines are.
Okay.
I see in the chat that Gloria suggested H. Thank you, Gloria. All of the above. I like that option.
H. Yeah, we didn't put that on there. Hey.
I know, creative thinking, Gloria. We like that. We need that in grants.
And now we're all going to agree with Gloria.
Anything else stick out there?
I would
Seems like
probably
it's
just
good.
say locating the funding,
Mhm,
because sometimes that in itself is a job. And
mhm.
if there's folks who are already out there looking at all of them all the time, then, then you can focus on getting things done.
Okay.
Denise, I see you raised your hand. Would you like to add?
Yes, I think besides location, I would say for me would be like the milestone, like developing and mentoring. So like how do we propose it or how do we write it before, finalizing and having guidance for that.
Okay. All right. So
Excellent.
really the beginning stuff, right? Like just getting it going and having help. And I know somebody mentioned having a team, or I think Gracie mentioned having your team in place. Okay. Let's go on to question number 2. We only have 2 questions. Here's the next one. Overall, how comfortable do you feel with these pre-award processes, the ones we just described, on a scale of 1 to 5?
I would like to say 5, only after I get more familiarized with the internal stuff.
Mhm. Lauren, what would be your guess?
Oh, I would say 3, just because I have never had any experience writing it, and I agree that to me the monitoring, the writing at the process, that would be the most daunting.
Well, that's good though, because a 3 is not like a 1 running for the hills, like grants, I'm getting out of this. So that's good. It's a good starting place.
I would agree with 3, just kind of in the middle till you get started and you have a team, or you know where your resources are, you start getting comfortable.
Right. Gloria,
Good morning, Scott. Good morning, Oksana.
good morning.
My level would be 3. I think just because I've worked with Title V before, and I've done most of the handling of the time and effort forms for our grants. So I'm not too familiar as far as starting the grant itself, just because I joined once the grant was received. But definitely just keeping the documentation that's needed.
Okay. All right.
So our department has been supporting colleges in grant development for a while, but we really didn't know what the colleges thought about the support that we provided until now. We administered a survey in which we asked our colleagues district-wide among the various questions we asked, these 2 questions that you just answered, we also asked in the survey. And so one of the questions that we would like to highlight that we asked was, which support processes do you find valuable? And the second question was, how comfortable are you with these processes? So exactly the same questions we asked you were part of the survey. Now let's take a look at the survey results for your college. Let's see, what does college capacity in grants development looks like at Madera Community College? Well, first, before we go into that, we had 55 participants, just so you know. I'd like to provide a little bit of background information. As you can see, all colleges were represented here. Quite a few who responded had 5 to 10 years of experience, and most of them participated in writing a grant. So at Madera Community College, the most valuable support noted was, and we're going to just highlight the top 3, managing grant milestones and the timely submission of grant materials were just those highlights, top level valuable services that colleagues at Madera Community College have mentioned. And of the 9 participants from Madera Community College, 43% felt extremely comfortable and 57% felt somewhat comfortable with the pre-award processes. So think about, how does this really compare to what you said? So is it reflective of what you said, or is it not so much reflective? Just think about that as we go through the presentation. So we're going to skip the slides for the other colleges because we had them ready in case we're presenting this for other colleges as well. And so given what we've learned about the college's capacity in the survey results, In terms of the comfort level and what participants thought was valuable during COVID, we began developing resources for our new normal. We'd like to share these tools with you today, and these tools have been developed through the use of Microsoft products that are available for everyone in our district. So we use SharePoint, we use Power Automate, Teams, Outlook, so you will see a few highlighted today. Would like to introduce to you, first of all, our Grants Navigator. This is a SharePoint site and it's homepage for anyone interested in everything grants. And if you have a second screen available, I'm about to going to post the link to this Navigator. And if you are able, you can follow along in the presentation, or you can just simply access it after the presentation and explore it some more. So let me just quickly paste it. So there it is. So we'll show you a few key tools that live inside of this Grants Navigator. And we hope you will really take some time, maybe after the workshop, to explore the tools that we are presenting to you today. The first one is our menu of grants. In our survey results earlier, we've learned that one of the top 3 services most valued by our colleges was locating funding opportunities. And then that's what you all said, that's quite important. It is a job of itself. And that's what a lot of that work is what Scott does in our office. He does a lot of researching for funding opportunities. And menu of grants gives access to each person at your college to funding opportunities. And usually in the past, what we would do, we would send the funding opportunities to, and we still do that, we still send it to college leads, the VPs, but now everybody can access them because we have this new tool, menu of grants. So once you access the Grants Navigator, you will see the menu of grants available on the left side menu, or by scrolling down to the middle of the homepage. So it's right there in the middle. Once you select the menu of grants on the left side or in the middle, you will see a few buttons which you can use to access this menu. The buttons are just the top layer, but what they really are called in SharePoint language views. Views allow us to save exactly the same list, but with different filters applied to it. So this is the same menu that you're seeing, but it's either grouped, filtered, or sorted. So we're going to go through these 3 options. So from the left to right, you'll see sorted by upcoming deadlines, and it only shows upcoming grant competitions that are currently open. So anything that has an open deadline right now is sorted by upcoming opportunities. Grouped by category groups all opportunities by academic area, and we're going to go into more details shortly. And the full catalog is exactly that. It's the entire menu. It's a catalog of forecasted, closed, and archived grant competitions. And so here is what the full catalog looks like. You can sort and filter this list just like you would an Excel document. You can sort fields using the arrows that are pointing down next to the field labels, by title, by the date when we have updated the opportunity, by agency name, by category, and by deadline, and so on. If you click on the funding opportunity title, a side window will open with more details. So let's take a look at another view, funding opportunities by category or academic area. If you click on the category, the list will open for that category. So you will see in the category that we use are academic areas. So we just group the funding opportunities. For example, here, if you were to click on fine arts, you'll only see opportunities that are related to fine arts. Sometimes if you're in humanities, you might want to check multiple. You might check fine arts and humanities, right? Anything that's in that overall area of academic areas. The next tool available on our Grants Navigator is the calendar. You can access it from the home page or scroll down again from that home page to the middle of the page. And a link to the calendar, once you link on the calendar, in the middle of the page, what you see there is the link to the calendar. It's that image of the calendar, and the upcoming funding deadlines, they're just listed right away. You can see what's coming up right now. So there are two types of entries in our calendar: funding opportunities and grant deadlines. And I'm going to explain the difference between these two. These entries are populated automatically through our automated flows. Automated flows is what has been built in the background to be able to see what's coming up automatically on the calendar. For example, when you see a grant deadline, so if you see the wording that I think Scott used green boxes there, grant deadline, it means that one of our colleges or sites is pursuing the funding opportunity. And you can see who is applying for that grant by looking at the title of the entry. You see that at the end, grant deadline, Humanities for All, and at the end it has FCC. So now you can see that Fresno City College applied for that grant, and which was due on August 2nd. And funding opportunity, anything that starts with the wording funding opportunities, are those funding opportunities that are coming from that menu of grants, and that we sent it to one of the colleges telling them that they are eligible for that funding. So that's what the calendar entries are. You can click on the calendar entry. So once you're in the calendar, and you will see more details. This is an example of a funding opportunity and a description of it with a link to the agency, so you can see more information about it. And we also have a tip for you. Let's say you don't feel like going to our website every single time to check the calendar to see what's coming up. Well, you can bring the calendar to your own environment, Outlook, right? You all use Outlook calendars probably in your daily work. So what you can do is you can go to the calendar, and the third tab there that says calendar, you click on it, and additional options will appear. And one of the options that is there is connect to Outlook. It's that towards the end of the screen. There you go. Excellent. That's the, you will click on that connect to Outlook. You will allow, a window will pop up. It will ask you if you are okay with, for it to connect to your Outlook. If you say okay, then you go back to your Outlook and it will be synced to your calendar. So you'll have an option to view the calendar next to yours. So it's very handy. You don't have to ever leave your Outlook. You can always see all the updated funding opportunities and grant deadlines right there in your Outlook interface.
Oksana?
Mhm. Yes.
Denise has her hand up, or
I think that was from before. Denise, was that from the previous time? I didn't see it go down after you asked the question. Do you want to say something? I think it was from the previous time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate it. So the other two services of value that, as you saw, participants noted were monitoring the grant's timeline, and that's something you've also mentioned, and the timely submission of the grant. And the tools that we developed to support these services are within the pre-award phase of the Navigator. The first phase in the grant cycle includes a step-by-step navigator, and once the funding opportunity is identified, we help you monitor your progress from the moment when you decide to pursue a funding opportunity to the moment when we submit the grant application on your behalf. And we'll show you what that looks like next. If you scroll down to the third step, this is how you get to the grant milestones timeline visual. And we'd like to briefly share with you how we support the grant application timely submission via grant milestones timeline. And this is exactly what you guys were talking about earlier about what does that look like internally? Antoinette, you were asking, what does the internal process look like? And this is what our internal process looks like. And I'll let Scott walk you, briefly share that with you.
Okay, so how does this grant milestone timeline actually work? Don't think that you have to memorize it. You don't have to remember it right now, but you can contact us as we go, and you'll see how we help you with it throughout the grant process. So, and it's available on the Grant Navigator, so you can come back and refer to it. So grants are fast-paced and competitions have short windows for submission. It's usually only 30 days. So if you've added the calendar to your Outlook, keep an eye on it. Because of this, our district has developed a very quick and very efficient 16 working day submission process. That's what's pictured here. So this is 16 working days. As soon as you commit to pursuing a grant, our department sends you an email with their project timeline. Okay, so your team, whoever your leader is for that team, gets this full timeline. This comes with dates and instructions to keep you on track. At the same time, our department starts developing guidance templates based on instructions from the grant competition. These provide tips and recommendations on how to write your proposal and budget. So we help you all the way along. Think of it as cliff notes, cheat sheets, to just help you write it all. You don't have to go through everything. We do that on your behalf. At 16 days before deadline, the notice of intent, or NOI, is due. The notice of intent is an internal form of the district that announces your intent to apply for a grant and gives your college president the option to go forward with the funding opportunity or not. Once you submit the NOI, it is automatically routed to your president and to our department. So that's an important part of this process to sort of really kick things off. You don't have to wait 16 days before deadline. The sooner you know, the better it is for everyone. You have more time to prepare and write your grant. 10 days out, your grant project team has two deadlines. Okay, first, you must send a draft budget for review to the College Administrative Services Office. At the same time, you must send a copy of your draft narrative to your supervisor, and usually your dean, for review and input. So that happens 10 days out. You've got to have a really good idea of what you're doing. 7 days out, your team will send a copy of your grant proposal to our department for review. One of our primary services is to provide feedback for your grant projects. However, to take the most advantage of this service, we recommend sending your narrative well ahead of the 7-day milestone. So again, over and over, the sooner you know, the more time you've got to prepare and the more feedback and response that everybody on your team, including us, can offer. 5 days out is the deadline for your team to send the grant budget to the district for final review. That's generally going to be your college account, administrative services, whoever you designate on the team, but it needs to get sent to the district for the final review. Do this as early as possible. 3 days out, and it's time to get final approvals from your college leadership. This is done by routing your proposal with supporting documents, the final district approved grant budget, and your most recent project narrative around campus. So it's going all the way around campus. Our department helps to coordinate this process and troubleshoots when necessary. So sometimes things get stuck and we get to be the grease to those wheels. 2 days out, this is 2 days away from deadline. And our department should have all your grant documents. At this time, we will forward the completed routing slip with campus approved signatures to the Vice Chancellor of Finance and Administration here at the district. And then once approved, your proposal will be cleared for submission. So again, the earlier, the better. The final day has arrived. Our department reviews all documents, then submits the grant application on your behalf. In the past, the grants department sent out reminders to project teams manually. Today, this process has been automated and teams receive regular reminders, as we mentioned, it's like this one, to ensure the timely progress of the grant submission. So this is an example of what we'd send out after the timeline. So when you have a milestone coming up, here's your reminder. And you'll notice it goes to the whole project team.
All right, so we shared a lot so far. So far we shared with you how to use the menu of grants to find funding opportunities. We shared with you the calendar where you can see what's coming up. How we use the grant milestones timeline to help college grant writing leads to timely progress towards the grant deadline. And finally, we'd like to share with you a few highlights on how we use Teams to collaborate on projects. How many of you use Teams? Maybe raise your hand, or yeah, there you go. Great. Yes, fantastic. So you are familiar with the tool. So we're gonna go over a few. We're not gonna go over how to use Teams. What we're going to do is we're gonna go over different ways in which we found Teams to be very helpful in grants development. Once you do get to receive this PowerPoint presentation, you will see there's two links for those who don't have Teams on your devices. You can download it if you don't have it on your device. And on the right side at the bottom, you will see a link on how to use Microsoft Teams. And there's a lot more tips than what we are sharing today. But today we're going to share with you posts, files, membership, instant meetings, and tasks. These are the different areas that we'd like to highlight that we have been using as collaborative tools in this new normal. Teams is a Microsoft product, and as such, it's connected to our Outlook and Active Directory. And because of that, it's very easy to add members to your team. Once you add all the members of the team to your team, they will stay there and they can be given different roles. And it's very easy to locate people. You just start typing Scott, you'll find all the Scots in the district. You'll start typing Oksana, you'll find the only Oksana in the district there. And so it's very, very easy to add your team members. And unlike with emails, when you have to remember everybody you have to add in your team in the to line, in the copy carbon line, with membership in Teams, you add them once to your team and they are there. They'll always be in the loop on what the project is about. They'll see any posts and they'll be able to chime in anytime there's something that relates to their role in the project. With Teams, you don't have to schedule a meeting in advance. You might have already noticed that if you used the Teams feature of Teams. As you know, in Teams, you have your chat where you talk to other people, and also you have the Teams feature where you can create teams. So with what you'll do in order to start a quick meeting with the team, you just go to the right corner, top corner that says meet. You click on that and instantly everybody is in the same meeting without you scheduling and thinking ahead of time. It's very, very handy. And the post space right there in the middle tells the team that the meeting is in progress if they want to jump and join the team. And when you're done, you will see how, if there's the progress about the meeting. You can see the attendance report, how long the meeting was. So it's very helpful for people who want to just have a quick meeting, and you can post something about that and meet right away. Tasks can be created by adding a tab at the very top and search, and the way you do that, you would click on that plus sign and you'll search for planner, and you can divide, once you add that planner that we renamed and called the tasks here, and you can add up various tasks for the projects. You can divide up the tasks. As you can see, you can assign them to a person, you can assign a due date, and what Teams will do, it will send automatic reminders to help people remember when that something is due that they are in charge of. And this is an example of a task that from our own, I think, office. Oh, Scott changed the example. I had another example that had a checklist. So in the checklist, you can add
I kept it on the humanities theme.
There were various checklist items you can add to this task. You can attach attachments to show the progress you're making. You can add how far along you are, the priority for this task. Very many details you can add to the same example here. And our office uses this all the time. We call it our priorities board. You can create a post that's urgent. So quickly moving to posts now. So with posts, you can post different type of messages to the team. You can create a post that's urgent. You can give it a title, so the top example there, and you can tag the entire team by using the @ sign. All you'll do, you'll just start typing @ and then you start adding the title of the team, and everybody will be notified at the same time that this message is for them. In the second screenshot below, you will see that where I tagged only one person and I didn't have a topic. Also, I had 28 replies to that topic. They were all grouped under the same question. Post groups replies to a question, so you will know which reply is for which question. So once you ask a question, all the replies are related to that question will be gathered, and as you can see here, grouped together. So then whenever you want to look for some information, you can search the posts and find it quickly, and you can find all the related responses to it. Finally, files is where you can place all the documents you're collaborating in one place. All the templates that we create for your narrative, for your budget, will be added to the space as well. And this allows for your team to have one central location where you can access your templates, your working documents. As you can see, we have a folder for data, for the logic model. This is a recent project we did. We add any research literature. If you want to support what we say with literature, it's really handy so everybody can read those articles and see if they see anything interesting that would contribute to the project. Team stores these files in SharePoint side behind the scenes. That's why you see that at the top, open in SharePoint, you can open the documents either in SharePoint but you really don't have to. So you can work on the documents without even leaving the team space. And you might already know this if you've collaborated in teams on projects. So in summary, we talked about multiple. Yes, that's right, Antoinette. I agree. Much easier to do in SharePoint. That's right, because sometimes you want to chat in Teams and then you don't want to use that space. So again, various options. So it's really nice to have the flexibility of either working in Teams or going to the actual SharePoint site. And I should just mention that anytime you create a team, automatically that creates a SharePoint site in the background if you don't know. So that you don't have to ask IT to create a SharePoint site for you. That happens when you create a team automatically. So far we talked about Grants Navigator, where we have a step-by-step on how to develop a grant, how we use grant milestones timeline with auto reminders. We talked about the menu of grants, how to locate funding opportunities. We talked about the calendar, where you can see upcoming opportunities and know which grants your college is applying for. And we talked about how we use teams to collaborate on grant development projects in this new normal. And now I would like to have a quick mini focus group with you.
Okay, so just to check, how are we on time?
You're fine.
We're finishing at 10:30, just double checking.
Yes.
Okay. So that's
Oh,
good.
really? Okay.
Let's go forward. Is everybody good with going forward into the focus group? Okay.
Sure.
Or do you need to stretch for a moment, or you're good? All right. Just checking with everybody. We've got a couple of questions. We don't actually have a lot of questions, but we actually have 3. But we wanted to take the opportunity to really find out, now that you've gotten to see what we have been working on and how we're trying to be responsive, trying to help build your capacity for creating and writing and implementing grants at your individual campuses. We wanted to come back to kind of looking at all of these tools, right? Which of the tools that we have developed is most attractive to you and why? So we're small enough. Anybody want to take the lead?
I'll answer. I really like how you guys have like a place where we can just go and look at the grants and what grants are offered. And, the timeline, I think that's very beneficial. That's a good start. So I know I can go in there, I can see what grants are available and then read the description to see if it's for, something I can pursue and apply for.
I think my internet's just being flaky, but I'm looking at this grants calendar, and I found one for Dr. Ganesen Servas and that Agriculture Innovation Center. So I think that right there is just awesome that you could, every now and then you could go, okay, you know what? let me look and see what's coming up and see if there's anything that would be good for Madera and Oakhurst.
I
think
agree.
the
Since I would be so new at grants or any of that type of stuff, the menu of grants, and just for what Gracie said as well, anytime you go there, look them up, find an overview of each of the grants. That's really helpful.
Now that I want to just say, that doesn't mean it's a comprehensive list. This is something we're populating. You know, it's kind of the result of what we find. So if you're at a conference, if you're talking to a colleague, if you see something in the news, and you don't see it on our list, we're probably not aware. So let us know. That's a lot of grants are all about keeping your ear to the ground, right? That's why I emphasize paying attention to policy recommendations, your meetings, and you know, language in the news for future funding. So let's see. Antoinette said, let's see, much easier to do. I don't know if this is for this, but much easier.
No, that was earlier.
Oh, that was earlier. Okay, just double checking here.
No, I mean, Denise basically hit it right on the head of what she said, because there's already one that I'm looking at, and I just needed to see if it's still open, because there's a project with the IT groups that we can look at, and it's a yearly application.
Mm-hmm. I want to say also, you can call us or contact us through Teams too. So if you have, like, you do not have to do it alone. That's why we exist. So if you find something and you have more questions after looking through the menu of grants, you just get in touch. Any others? The calendar, the SharePoint, the Collaborate, anything else attractive to anybody else?
I love SharePoint and Teams, so it makes life a whole lot easier.
Has it changed the way that you interact with your colleagues or you work, or?
The committee structures at Madera basically reside in Teams and also SharePoint. So Madera has gotten really, I think we use it a lot more than like any other colleges, I think.
And you set it up, Madera set it up
Wait.
to reflect their actual structure. So it's not like everybody's creating a team for different things. It's the infrastructure of the college.
Well,
Oh,
like,
no, I mean, I don't know about you, Antoinette, but we're using it the same, I mean, in a million different ways.
mhm. So like we have academic senate.
Counseling, we have an outreach. Sorry, go ahead, Antoinette.
No, I was just gonna say, like, we have an academic teams group that the exec also, same with curriculum, same with distance ed, because it's a lot easier to disseminate and keep those files in one area. So as you're making changes, everybody gets to see those live changes instead of like having to, is this the right version? Is this the old version? And then people get confused. So I think it's been working for us.
Yeah, and I was just saying in student services and counseling, we have, you know, an outreach team, and then we have, you know, there's like a marketing, and then there's a, you know, a student ed plan, and then there's a counseling, and then it's a full-time counseling, and so, and it works. We've gotten to a point where we'll send a, can you talk now? Because, you know, in counseling, we're sometimes in appointments with students online or face-to-face, so maybe not now, but in 15 minutes. And so in 15 minutes, everybody can log in or something. So yeah, Teams is pretty amazing in what you can do. So this just makes it even nicer knowing that it's already set up that way.
Okay, let's move on. Oh, yes?
No,
somebody?
I was just gonna say I agree with Gracie. It makes it like more, we can just be like, hey, do you have 15 minutes or come? And then also I'm part of EOPS, so I'm still connected. Oop.
I've got 3 daughters, so I know what that sound is.
No worries. We can come back to you, Denise. We can go to the next question. How about that?
Okay, yeah, let's move on to the next question. Question 2, it's kind of the reverse. Which of these tools is the least attractive to you and why? Like which one of these is like, eh?
So I'm not gonna lie, as you were going through and like identifying those sources, and then there's an area that identifies what college is applying for that, just because I came from a competitive world when it came to grant writing, there's one of those like, do I really want the other colleges to know what I'm applying for?
Sometimes no, right? Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes no.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
keep
trying
in
to remember where, isn't there somewhere where, I'm trying to remember where the district is always posted, like, this college is applying for this and this
Or
college. Where?
So yeah, so there are two ways you can, well, one way to find out is on the board meeting minutes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Board meeting always announces it, so it's not a secret who's applying for what. So, but in
Right.
another, so there's two things to consider here, right? Sometimes there's opportunities to collaborate with other colleges, so that's something to consider. And the other thing to think about is all you see is who's applying for it. You don't know any other details. And the way we view it, and we've seen many people who have written grants in the past who say, you know, as long as one of us gets it in the district, it's wonderful for our students, right? We want to just bring these opportunities to our students. Maybe this time one college gets it, next time another college gets it, and we can learn from each other. And sometimes leads are even willing to share with each other what the grant was like, what they wrote. So just things to think about, but I understand what you mean, Antoinette. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and those board of trustee notifications happen after the grant competition. So they're not very timely, and once a month, and so you could have a 1 or 2 month delay. I've got a good example last year in the Flex Day training. Oh, now I can't think of her name. In nursing there at Madeira, she decided she was inspired to do a grant, and a Song Brown nursing grant. And Fresno City College had just done this, but when she asked for help, they weren't so responsive, probably because it was during the time that they were writing their Song Brown grant. And so things were going very slow, and nobody was hearing anything back. So that does happen. Antoinette's right. But I will say, and it was discouraging to her, your Madeira faculty. But then after we had a meeting or a Flex Day training, she was encouraged. She went and tried it again, and she worked with our office, who then contacted Fresno City on her behalf and basically said, like kind of, like I said, grease the wheels, help facilitate the relationship, and said, hey, Madeira is wanting to go after this. You were so successful last year. Would you be willing to share what your application, give her a clue? And they said, oh yeah, of course, sure, right? So sometimes it's just a matter of timing. Sometimes it's those relationships that just need to be built. Sometimes I know Fresno City College's team was very much at the beginning of their understanding of how to apply for grants. So they were very stressed and nervous, and this was the beginning of COVID. So they were coming to the end of their spring term. So they had all this other stuff going on behind the scenes. So that's one of the things that our office does. And then I will tell you that you might already be aware, Madeira was awarded that Song Brown grant for nursing, which is like, I'm so happy about that. Any other tools or anything that maybe you think, okay, that tool looks good, this is going to be why it's not so great, maybe you could do this or that, or it all looks good now, it's just perfect?
Just to add to that, some of these are still in development. We're still, as Scott said, we're still populating menu of grants. We're still, but we wanted to at least start making these available to you. Even though we're still working on them, you'll see our grants navigator for the pre-award phase. we are just starting to put together some resources in there. So we're in those early stages of this, and you'll see hopefully how it progresses in time. But it's good to know where we started.
You are our beta testers, and you are the very first people to see this. So congrats. We're not even at the first version. So let's move on to the next question. Noxana, did you want to take the lead on this
Well,
one?
yeah, sure. Yeah, what gaps do you see in the support that is currently available to you for grant development? Now that you have seen everything we've created to attempt to address those needs listed on the survey and the things that you said, what do you think is missing? What do you think could be added?
Well, I'm thinking, I'm not necessarily, something that you could add, but I'm thinking, well, for example, like this is really good presentation and there's only 7 of us here. So it's unfortunate, but I'm thinking it's, at Madeira, you probably already know, because we just became a college, we still have a lot of gaps in, a lot of people still wearing 2 or 3 hats. So people might be feeling like, oh gosh, I can't take on another project, I think. But I think knowing that this, I'll bring it up in Academic Senate in our meeting today, that this has made it so much easier. I was at Fresno City College, 15 years ago, and we just all sat around, a table and did stuff. So I think that that's encouraging that there is all this support.
Thank you for the comment. That's good to know. Very helpful for us.
I'm curious, are there any conversations at Madeira about grants? Is that any of the water cooler or maybe departmental meeting conversations of, what, we need to pilot something new. We need to be innovative and entrepreneurial in our approach to education. And that's grants, that's where the grant projects come in. Is that in any of your conversations?
So for me, actually doing this presentation, it sparked an idea. I actually just used Teams messaging to message our IT folks like, hey, why don't we redo the USDA grant that we previously applied and got to expand our technology uses in the classroom to add the computers and technology that we're still lacking. So that's something we're going to see to make sure that it's still open, because we already have the grant. We just need to do some slight modifications.
That's great. Hearing about ideas that have been sparked, that's what we want to hear, right? Sometimes it's just those things that prompt us to think about the next steps or things that we can take away, right, from things that are shared.
Well, and here's a thought about grants. Many times grants, the EDA grants are grants that you can buy equipment and invest in facilities and things like that. And like you saw, there's a lot of funding coming down that way. But many grants, especially with the Department of Education, are not grants where you can purchase things, so much like individually, like supplies, like computer tech. But what you can do is you can build that into a larger program. So one of the things to look at, I highly recommend looking at the Student Support Services grants that Madeira applied for a couple of years ago as a starting place, and just kind of thinking not about the grant funding, but about the overall need and coming up with your solutions for that. And then you can find the funding that'll support that. Like, here's a program and it's meeting these technology needs. Oh, here's a program and it's meeting this investment in agriculture training, right, in our CTE programs. So that's just something to think about.
Scott, Gloria had a comment.
Hi, Scott, to add to your question, at least on with VB Battisti, our department is working on the Fund 12 task force, which would help our campus post award. If you know, and I think that's something that's very instrumental because it's great if you're new to applying to grants. It would be beneficial to help our colleagues through the entire process. So I think that's just a conversation that's being taking place at this moment as well.
Excellent. Excellent. It's important to have that conversation. I'm glad Maria is looking at that because as a district, you saw, we really have focused on and have the capacity in the district to focus on the pre-award phase. But there's also the award phase and the post-award phase, right? You get it, all the contracts written up, and then you implement it and you report on it. And if we do not have, like, we're working on developing those as we can, but if Maria is really looking at that, then she's going to be fortifying Madeira against audits, right? Because that post-award process is where you have to have all your reporting done. You've got to have your communication with your program officer well in place. If things change from year to year of your grant, you need to make sure that everything's up and up, right? You've got everything documented, right? And so all of that protects you if and when your campus gets audited for their grant projects.
I
Luckily,
have a question.
yes.
You guys had mentioned like pay attention to the new policies and stuff that are happening, right? So the chancellor's office at the community college in California, they're putting in a lot of money in OER. And so that's going to be filtering down. Would you guys be emailing, or is it something that if a faculty is interested, we have to periodically check to see if it's open?
Think of grants as a team effort, and especially when it comes to the chancellor's office, because they are notoriously bad at notifying the campuses of their grant funding opportunities. Like, there is no grant place to go on at the chancellor's office. You have to go to department by department, and you have to hunt, and you still won't find things that exist. So that's a good tip, and I'll be looking for the OER. But if you see anything, they usually send to the president a notification, and they figure they're good, right? So if one person at a campus is getting it, it's likely to be missed. So if you hear anything, see anything, take a look at that menu of grants, and if it's not there, then we don't know.
Yeah, I just looked. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And something else I am planning to build into the menu of grants is a way for each of you to subscribe to get notifications anytime we add something. So that's in my next part in building out the menu of grants. So I'll have something that will allow for you to say, hey, I would like to get notifications anytime you add something in STEM, or I'd like to see everything. So I'll have something where you can put in your name, put in your college, and then what you want to be subscribed to, and then for you to get automatic emails anytime we add something that relates to the criteria that you have indicated. So that's something maybe might help as well. So you don't have to always go back and check, right? So I'm thinking, how can we bring these opportunities to you rather than you having to go out and look for them? We always try to think in that way, in that direction.
That would be actually really
Good.
helpful.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'll add it to my priority list then.
Yeah, because I used to get emails through grants.gov for specific criteria that I was looking at in law enforcement. So yeah,
nice.
that would be so helpful to have that.
Okay, sounds good. I'll create some listserv opportunities. So, and as soon as I develop that, I'll let you guys know about.
Awesome.
that additional feature. Yeah, this is exactly the kind of feedback we were hoping to get as a part of this last question we have for you. So we don't have to end the conversation here. Our next slide just basically shows you how you can connect with us via Teams. So if you were to click on that, it will take you to our general channel and you can just say hi to us. And if there's something that you see or notice, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Would love to hear your feedback. Sometimes I'm at a presentation and I think, and I don't maybe have feedback right away, but the information simmers in my head. And then later on, I think, oh, I should have mentioned that. So if you have that kind of moment after our presentation, this is a good place for you to tell us what came, if something new comes to mind in terms of ideas or suggestions or feedback or anything really. We're open to your recommendations.
And please spread the word to your colleagues of the Grant Navigator and your departments, because these resources will be here. I know this workshop is being recorded, but I'm not sure who's going to have that.
I'll have it and I'll send it to our Flex chair, I believe, Flex committee chair.
Okay,
and I don't
great.
know where it'll go from there, but it will be, people can access it in some way.
All right.
And also, I call this a soft launch. Once we have we kind of fine tune our grants navigator, then we're going to advertise it properly to all the colleges, just so you know. And yes, you will have access to the PowerPoint. Thank you, Gloria. Absolutely. And we'll actually post it on this very site. We'll go to documents and we'll put our resources. This very presentation, we'll post it there so you can access all the links within it and everything that we have talked about. Yes, absolutely. Of course. Thank you, Gloria. All righty, that's all we have for you today. If there's any final comments or questions or anything you'd like to add for the good of the group, and that will be it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. We enjoyed our time with you.
Thank you both. This was very helpful.
All righty. Have a wonderful day.
All right.
Too.
A great
Bye.
Flex Day.